All right, and welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. This is your host, Rico, and today we are looking at if the Washington Commanders should try and trade for last season's NFL sack leader. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. So if you have not heard the news here, this is Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals, pretty much saying that he's looking for a new deal or a trade. It looks like the only options that are left here for Cincinnati. And so, if you did not know, last season he had requested a trade before the season started. Did not happen. And now here we are. He has 1 year left on his deal. And essentially, he is looking for the extension or wanting Cincinnati to go ahead and trade him. He was on an ESPN show here earlier today. And this is, paraphrasing what he had to say. Look, he's saying that he wants to agree to some type of terms that would be great. Ideally, he would love to stay in Cincinnati. But if it's something that helps the Bengals win the Super Bowl, if they get picks or anything like that, I want to help win a Super Bowl for Cincinnati, whether I'm there or not. And so really laying it out there for the Cincinnati Bengals that, look, you're either going to extend me or trade me. And so the Cincinnati Bengals are in an interesting situation right now because when you look at it, there's Jamar Chase. He's looking to get extended. He's obviously going to want some big money. Then you have T. Higgins, which is a player that we've talked about where he's going to, want some money as well. And so, look, the Cincinnati Bengals, it's going to be tough for them to certainly go out there and retain everybody's services, maybe at the amount of money that they would want here for their contract. And so that leads it now to the Washington Commanders. And we know the Washington Commanders are definitely looking to probably upgrade this roster. It's just a matter of how are they going to do it, because we know for sure that we have the 7 picks going into this draft. We know defensively that is something that I think that we could probably all agree on, that the Washington Commanders are going to have to go out there and address that. And who knows what's going to happen with all the free agents that we have on this team. But it just makes me wonder, would the Washington Commanders perhaps get in on a deal to get Trey Hendrickson here? Like, do they go out there and get him? Because when you look at his contract right now, he has 1 year left on his deal. I think it's right around like $16 million, if I'm not mistaken. And so 1 year. And the significance of that is that, he's probably going to want maybe a 2-3 year extension at this point in time. You're probably looking at something, just guessing here, maybe around like $40-50 million or something like that for that extension. Keep in mind he's 30, so he'll be 31 at the end of this upcoming season. But just with his production, look, he had 17 and a half sacks last season, so he led the NFL. In 2023, he had 17 and a half sacks there. In 2021, he had 14. 2020, he had 13 and a half. And that is significant because if you think about that, if the Washington Commanders were to make a trade for him, this lets you know just how impactful he might be. Dante Fowler Jr., he led us in sacks last year at 10 and a half. He would be nearly 8 sacks ahead of that. So that's tremendous for a team that had 43 sacks, I believe, on the year. And so, I definitely think you add Trey, Hendrickson at the end position. I think that he certainly helps the Washington Commanders. And I just think that now, 8 years in the league, he's going to be 31. What would it take maybe to get him over there? Could it be something where the Washington Commanders, if they were interested, if the Bengals really wanted to do this, would the Washington Commanders be willing to give up maybe a second and a third round pick? Could you maybe package up maybe Jonathan Allen in the deal? Is that a possibility? But I think that maybe this is something that the Washington Commanders certainly do look at. I think that, if you're looking at it from a short-term standpoint, he certainly does help you that way. I think that for that short term, you got to ask yourself, are you willing to pay that much money for him? Because I don't necessarily think coming off a couple picks, a second and a third round pick is necessarily going to be, necessarily something that sets the franchise back, but I do think the salary that he might want to command on the extension is something that I think Adam Peters is really going to think about. I think that, maybe if this were, the old front office, they probably would have jumped all on that, and then just really kind of just went ahead and offered the extension and really not thought about it for the long term. But I just think if you're trying to maximize Jaden Daniels and this window, you have to think strategically. And what I will say, maybe in favor of going out there and getting, Trey Hendrickson, is maybe what you're getting is definitely a player that's certainly maybe more affordable than, say, Myles Garrett, because we did talk about that before, that if the Washington Commanders go out and get him, the amount of money that it would take, as far as extending him and keeping him, that is going to be, I think, a pretty penny. And then also, too, you're thinking about the fact that you are going to have to give up significant draft capital to get him. I think it's more reasonable draft capital to go over there and get the NFL sack leader from last season. The question now would be, would the Washington Commanders be willing to pay him, that $40-50 million range? Because I think it is going to be something around that. I don't know if it's anything past like a 3-year deal at this point in time. Who knows? I'm kind of speculating on that, but just saying, like, maybe that is something that the Washington Commanders do explore. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking here. Do you think that the Washington Commanders should maybe be in play, picking up the phone to see if they can get the NFL sack leader from a year ago? Or do you think that, no, this is a deal that the Washington Commanders absolutely should not do? You think that at the end of the day, you would like to maybe keep the second and the third round pick? And I'm just throwing it out there that maybe that is what they would want, because one of the things he talks about is draft picks. And I would say that, look, if you're giving up, the defensive or the NFL sack leader, it's probably going to be a little bit more than a second and a third round pick. I mean, that's something that I'm kind of just estimating. It could be more than that. Do the Washington Commanders make a move for that? So I'd love to hear that. We'll be talking a little bit more about the Washington Commanders, some of the deals that they could make. And I must say, look, it is the off, or not even necessarily the off season, but I just think it's heating up already. I mean, we've already heard, trade requests, whether it is Trey Hendrickson or Myles Garrett. And just now we hear the news about, Cooper Kupp and the fact that, that he's not going to be with the Rams anymore because they want to trade him. And so I think that it is very interesting what may happen now as we move a little bit further past the Super Bowl, and what we're going to be hearing with maybe some more trade requests or maybe more players become available. So let me know in the comments. Go Commanders. I will see you on the next one. All right. Peace.